welcome to another edition of Get the Life You Love. I'm Phil Parker, and today I've got with me Patrick Strudwick, who is a multi-award winning journalist. So welcome, Patrick.
Thank you.
So Patrick, we're going to start with the usual question, which is, what's something that most people wouldn't know about you?
I think the thing that, if I look back over my life, all the way back really, but particularly in my adult life, I think the thing that underpins and defines me, that is also really my biggest talent, is just sheer naked determination. I've been through an awful lot in my adult life in particular, a lot of things that would bring most people under completely, which I think is what led me to developing or doing ME, as you would say. But it was my sheer determination that got me through all of those things, and that saw me through the lightning process and saw me come out of it not just better in terms of no longer having ME, but transformed in a much more positive way, because the sheer determination to drag myself out of that well and to never look back and to just carry on is, for me, the thing that defines me. People generally see the surface of you. They see the successes and the failures. They see how you are as a person. They see what you're like, but they don't see they don't see the cogs. They don't see the engine. And for me, the engine is just like dogged determination to get where I need to go.
So you're a multi-award winning journalist, as I said, and you write for
The Times, The Guardian, The Independent, Mail on Sunday. Anyone will have me.
And you got a whole set of awards for your work. Can you tell us about those?
I won Stonewall Journalist of the Year. I won EU Journalist of the Year. I won Best Newspaper Feature at the Guild of Health Writers. I've been shortlisted twice for Mind Journalist of the Year. And what was the other one I was shortlisted for? It was an EU Diversity Award as well.
Yeah.
So
quite a collection.
A bit of a clutch. My bathroom is full.
And your original degree wasn't in journalism, was it?
No, it was in classical music. I trained as a composer, which is a bit of a sharp left to go into journalism.
I find that fascinating. I've interviewed so many people recently who say they started off in one direction and ended up somewhere completely different that they could never have predicted. And yet, kids are asked at a very young age, well, what is it you want to study, so you know where you're going in your life? And it just so often doesn't work out that way. So how did you get to be a journalist?
Throughout my childhood, I was completely single-mindedly focused on music. From the age of 7, I was constantly practicing, constantly rehearsing. I was at music college from the age of 13. I was completely obsessed. It was all I thought about. I didn't pay any attention to most subjects in school because, I was going to be a musician, so who cares about maths and science and whatever else? And then went to university, specialised in composing, and again, that was all I thought about until after I graduated. I basically realised that I didn't have the same drive, the same need to express myself in an abstract way, which is what music is, and that actually what I needed to do, because I had a lot to say, was to express myself in a very specific way, i.e. through journalism. I wanted to tell people stories, I wanted to find out stories, I wanted to uncover the truth about things, and so I didn't train as a journalist. As I said, I'd already trained as a musician, but I just wanted it so badly that I started just hassling people, knocking on doors, emailing editors, ringing up editors, sending them ideas, not taking no for an answer. If I got no for an answer, I'd come back with different ideas. And eventually, one editor said yes. I wrote some articles, got them published. Then I took that to another editor with other ideas, saying I've written here, can I publish something in your magazine? And from then it just snowballed. And within, I suppose, a year, I'd written for the Sunday Times and just had started the ball started rolling and the snowball started increasing in size. And before I knew it, I was writing for most of the national newspapers. So again, it kind of comes back to my original point, which is just like complete determination to get where I needed to go. But no, life obviously doesn't turn out how you expect, and the capacity to adapt is one of the most important things.
And what you covered there was something I was going to ask you about when you came across obstacles in your career path. How did you deal with them? So trying to be a journalist is one of those things that people will say, oh, it's very competitive, they can wear you down with those kind of conversations, but clearly that didn't happen to you. And I'm sure along that journey there was a number of knockbacks, a number of rejections. I mean, how many? I have no number for you, I'm afraid. I mean, well, I still get rejected. Yeah. Ideas still get rejected. I still have people not interested. I'm interested, when you had those rejections, how did you deal with it? Because so many people who'll be watching this will come across the same kind of thing in their lives, and having some insight into how you get over that would be really valuable. So how did you deal with it?
I'd say this. The honest answer is there's two main approaches I had to it, which tussle with each other, and they still tussle with each other sometimes. The first is the kind of perhaps the most obvious human reaction to rejection, which is to retreat, which is to say, oh, that's a blow, I feel depressed, I feel helpless, I can't do this. But the other reaction, and the one that eventually always wins out in me, is the one that visualises a positive future, the one that visualises getting what I want or succeeding.
And maybe you can talk me through this little element here, where you get a rejection from an editor, and then you're bold enough to go back and represent another bit of information. Talk me through how you do that, how you get your head around that.
It's interesting. When I first graduated and I came to London, didn't have a job, I just got the first job I could get, which was selling advertising space. A really hard job, a really brutal environment, and what would happen was I had very strict targets. It was mostly telephone sales. When someone hung up on me, which they quite often did, I was forced to phone them back and try a different tact.
By your supervisor?
By my boss. Yeah, I was forced to do that. Someone would irately put the phone down. I would ring them back up and say, I'm terribly sorry, I think we just got cut off there, and then try something different. So that was a tough but really useful bit of experience, because what it taught me is that, sometimes they'll put the phone down on you again, but sometimes if you do try something different, they will say yes, and I always keep that in mind, that people aren't rejecting you, they're giving you feedback on a particular idea, on a particular thing. So if you offer them something else, they might well say yes. So the thought process can be, if I get a rejection from an editor, it can be to go back to them with something else, maybe a couple of days later, so they don't get completely sick of me. Or, if I really believe in the story that I'm suggesting, to go somewhere else. Again, it's not a rejection of you. It might be them rejecting the idea, but it's not even a rejection of the idea itself. It's one person saying, this one thing that you are offering is not right for them. So, if I'm trying to... if I'm trying to get a ball into a hoop, and someone's putting a wall up, well, if I bounce it off that wall, it might go in. So the thought process is always about kind of just a bit like a computer game, and there's obstacles coming up against you, but just keeping your eye on the target, I suppose, and just being creative, sidestepping, doing something different, trying something else, going for a different option, lobbing something else at it, lobbing something at a different target, coming up with a different idea. So it's a bit of a dance that's always hampered by things along the way, but a belief in myself and in the idea, or a different idea, means that eventually I get there.
Mm-hmm. And those of you who also listen to my NLP podcast can probably catch a few NLP presuppositions in what Patrick has just said there. The idea there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback, that we shouldn't really take things personally, it's just information, that if what we're doing isn't working, we should do something else, and being flexible and so on. And that's such a powerful place to come from.
I think it does take a certain amount of experience to decide on the best course, in that if, for example, I get an idea rejected from one person, I will think, okay, well, that idea isn't right for them, so I'll give it to someone else. If, say, 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 people reject that idea, I might then start to think, well, there is a problem with the idea, so do something different. So, sometimes it's not always easy to tell whether your approach is wrong or needs adapting, or the idea needs adapting, or something. But I think the feedback, if it's wholly negative from several different people, should start a process of adaptation in you, so that you start to think about what will work.